So, under the way that the calendars are, Jesus would die in AD 32, and then if he came back in 2000, within the 2,000 years, it could be up to March of 2033.
Mm.
And that's where the confusion is. And we're just trying to straighten some of that confusion out. So, I started asking the Lord about it. I was like, Lord, am I understanding right about the two witnesses? Because this is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
It's a real big deal.
Welcome to Carting Truth Podcast, a father-daughter duo focusing on sharing revelations through conversations with the Lord. Let's get started with today's episode. Welcome to Carting Truth Podcast. I'm Lindsay here with my dad, Shane. And 2 episodes ago, we were talking about the two witnesses showing up really soon. We were also talking about the biblical calendar. We had a lot of questions on that, so we wanted to do another episode to clarify that. Also, my dad got new confirmation from the Lord on this exact subject. We cannot wait to share this with you.
Yeah, a couple episodes ago, Lindsay, we had some confusion about the two witnesses. And we had some people making comments they didn't understand. So I'm going to try to explain it. This is very difficult to explain. So when you get locked in on the Gregorian calendar, it can mess you up on the biblical calendar. So in AD 32, Jesus was crucified.
Mm-hmm.
According to the scenes, it was going to be after the 9th Jubilee, after the first Shabuah, which puts it AD 32 on the Gregorian calendar. But on the biblical calendar, it's the first month. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got locked in on that. So I thought, okay, if you read Hosea chapter 5, verse 15, which is the starting point, which is the ascension, then you got Jesus coming back in 2,000 years, and you would automatically think if he died in AD 32, he's coming back in 2032. But that's not right. He would have died in AD 32, 2,000 years later, would be 2033
I don't mess with you.
on the Gregorian calendar, but it would be the same cycle as AD 32 plus 2,000 years. So that's what gets confusing about it. All right. And I wanted to kind of try to explain that to people because what happens is it's like the parable of the vineyard of workers, you know. If you do something during the day, you get paid for the day. And that's the same way it is biblically. If you're inside that 1 year cycle, you know, a day in a prophetic year, and 1 day equals a year for a prophetic year. So as long as it happens within that prophetic year. So that's why I thought that the two witnesses would have to show up by January to stay within the AD 32 plus 2,000 year time frame.
Yes.
All right. And that's what gets confusing about it. So, under the way that the calendars are, Jesus would die in AD 32, and then if he came back in 2000, within the 2,000 years, it could be up to March of 2033.
Mm.
And that's where the confusion is. And we're just trying to straighten some of that confusion out. So, I started asking the Lord about it. I was like, Lord, am I understanding right about the two witnesses? Because this is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
It's a real big deal. Because, you know, we're going to be telling you information that it's not like somebody prophesying about, you know, somebody is going to win the lottery and then 8 months later somebody say, I told you somebody won the lottery.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know if somebody got that prophecy right or not.
This is very specific.
Right. This is very specific and very time sensitive.
Yes.
So I asked him again. And while I was talking to my cousin on the phone, the Spirit of the Lord interrupted me from talking to him. And he said, it's going to happen within this biblical cycle. This biblical cycle. They're going to show up within this biblical cycle. And what does that mean? That means from last spring, the equinox of 2025, to the spring equinox of 2026, they're going to show up. Now, when, I don't know when. He just told me it was they were going to show up. And that's prophesying a pretty big size prophecy right there.
Well, yeah.
Without it happening within that biblical cycle, it's not going to make any sense. Because Hosea chapter 5 verse 15 talks about Jesus going up, which is the start of the 2 days, the 2,000 years that Hosea talks about in chapter 6.
Right.
So it has to have a starting point. You can't just say, well, something's going to happen in 2 days. 2 days from when? There has to be a starting point. Well, that 2 days was his ascension, and that's what Hosea 5:15 says. I'm going up to my country, to my place,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what started the 2,000 year, 2 day cycle. All right.
Right. Okay.
So without that, well, that's got to come to a certain point at some time, and that point is now, because when you back up 7 years, because you've got to have that last week has to take place before Jesus comes back. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens is that forces you into this year.
Right.
From spring equinox of 2025 to spring equinox of 2026, those two witnesses have to show up, or this don't make any sense.
Right. And that's around the March time frame.
Right.
You know.
And the problem with that is he appeared to me in a vision, which we've talked about, and said, you have to tell my people what time it is. Well, that assumes I know what time it is.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding of what time it was is that Jesus died in AD 32 and he was coming back in 2,000 years. Now, of course, I was thinking Gregorian calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd be back by 2032.
Right.
But that's not what's going on. It's because of the biblical calendar will bleed you into 2033, the first 3 months of 2033, and still be within the correct biblical cycle. Well, you back up 7 years, you're at 2025 to the spring equinox of 2026, which is when we're in. So while I was talking to my cousin on the phone, he told me it was going to be in this cycle.
The Lord.
The Lord told me, the Spirit of the Lord told me that it was going to be in this cycle. I felt his presence come upon me, and I said, all right, you're telling me, because this is a big deal. And he kept bearing me witness, all right? Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, I got to have a second witness. This is too big. I've got to have a second
Always
witness.
two witnesses.
Right. Well, that was on a Friday, all right? Mm-hmm. And then that next Monday morning, here he shows up again. Okay. He says it's going to be on this cycle. And I mean, just the same way. And so I'm like, okay, that's a big revelation. Are you sure you want me to tell people this?
Right.
Because this is make or break Carding Truth, that they're going to show up sometime between now and next spring's equinox.
Right, okay.
No, it ain't a month, it's the equinox, whenever that is. Whenever the spring equinox comes out, that's when the cycle will end. So it has to happen before that spring equinox takes place.
Okay.
And so that's what we're telling you, that we believe the Lord, and I am very sure that his presence come up on me twice and revealed that to me. Mm-hmm. So, y'all, it's kind of scary when you start prophesying something like that. The two witnesses are going to show up before this spring equinox. Now, the way this word comes has happened to me only a few times, but every time it happens, it's dead on. All right. Last August, there was a guy walking by me in church, and the Lord's Spirit came upon me the same way. And I looked over at him and I said, "You're going to kill a big deer this year, a really big one." And so just a few weeks ago, he come running and showing and say, "You told me I was going to do this. You told me I was going to do this." And he showed me this big old deer he killed. And I said, well, when the Lord speaks to me like that, it always happens.
It's like a certain type of confirmation that you have got. I remember a couple of times for me, I know the first one that comes to mind was I was 15 and I was trying to get my learner's permit. And back then you had to do it on a computer and you could only miss 7 questions, or it's like, you got to come back a week later and try again. And I feel like I'd already failed it. I'd failed it once. And so I was very not confident. and you said, I got this confirmation from the Lord. You're going to pass your test and get your permit today. And so I was like, okay, yes, yay.
Miss 7.
You were allowed to miss 7. So you sat in the DMV where you could see me, and I was at this computer. Missed the first one. Missed the second one. I missed the first 7. And I kept looking at you every time, and you were like,
I remember you go mouthing it. I've already been 7.
Yeah, no, you were like, nope, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna get it. I missed 7. What are the chances I'll get the rest of the 30? What was it, 30 questions, right? I got all the other questions. I missed the first 7, got the other 23 right, and walked out with my permit. And I remember you saying, I have this certain confirmation from the Lord when I give words where I know that I know that I know they're gonna happen. Which brings me to the second one. We've told this story before.
Yeah.
When my sister had her first baby, who is now 4 years old, I was living out of state and I actually flew in to be able to see this baby. I was with her for a week. She was overdue. Finally, we make it to the hospital. I have to leave that day. So I literally will get to see the baby for a couple of minutes, probably, if she comes. So we're there and we're having complications and she's trying to get the baby out. And I'm looking at my watch saying, I've got to leave. My plane leaves in like an hour. Like I've got to get to security and get, through that. And I've got to leave. I've got 3 babies at home I need to go take care of. My husband's there with them. Like I came all the way out here to see the baby. I'm not going to get to see the baby. And you told me.
Oh, I was sitting in the waiting room with your mother and she said, I hope Lindsay gets to see this baby. She really wants to see this baby. And the spirit came up on me and I looked up at your mother and said, she's going to see it. And he said, you need to tell her. So when you came back in and I said, Lindsay, don't worry. You're going to see this baby. And that's when it started.
I was stressing. I was like, okay. And you said, no, it's this type of confirmation word that I got when you brought up my driver's license. You said, remember when you're getting your permit, this is the same confirmation you're going to get to see the baby. Well, funny thing, we ended up leaving because my plane was going to leave. So I got my stuff. My sister's still in labor.
Persecuting me on the way to the airport.
I was like, you said it was this one confirmation thing that you get. It's never wrong, blah, blah, blah. And all the way to the airport, I was not happy.
Get your bag out. And I was like, golly, Lord, I told her she's going to see this baby. And it's putting your bag. Had to carry it in there.
Get through security. I sit down there. I am not happy. I've spent a week out in Tennessee trying to see this baby for nothing, and I'm sitting there. My dad had told me he heard from the Lord and all this stuff. So I'm just sitting there just bummed out. And I get a text and I look down and my flight's been delayed. And I was like, oh, gosh.
So she texts me in the parking lot of the hospital because they wouldn't let me back in.
During COVID.
So my flight got delayed. And I said, how long? You said, oh, it's about 12 minutes. I said, well, that ain't long to wait.
Yeah, because I was already like, kick me when I'm down, right? 12 minutes, I still got to wait. So I got another ding. Now it's going to be like an hour late. And I'm just like, oh, this day just keeps getting worse. And then the third message hits, your flight has been canceled.
So I get a text, come get me. They canceled my flight. And the first thing I said, told you so.
Guess who got to spend the whole night in the hospital with the baby?
Yes.
Me.
I've got the picture. I've got the picture. Yeah, I may throw that up there.
You've sent that picture several times. Prophecy fulfilled.
Yeah.
Because that was just, 2
And you know what? It was scary when I gave you those prophecies, but when it comes in that certain way, and that's why I asked the Lord, I said, the first time, the Friday when my cousin, after I got off the phone with him, I said, Lord, I said, you told me that, it came upon me again. I was like, okay, I need a second witness. And then it came up on me again that next Monday. I woke up and it's like, this is going to happen within the cycle. I said, Lord, this is big. I said, this ain't just, saying out a prophecy that you can't prove.
Yeah.
I'm saying something here that everybody's going to know.
And then I'm going to add too that when you got here to do this episode, it was kind of hard to start this. And you went in there and I heard you asking the Lord again audibly. Did you not want me to do this episode? Are you sure you want me to do this episode? Oh, we can do something else. And you came back in here and I said, what did he say? And he said no. I was like, you better do this episode then. You don't want to not listen,
I mean, even though you get those words and you feel it and you know that you know that you know, they still scare you, you know?
Well, the enemy attacks in the flesh and all that. It's hard to.
So, yeah, coming before this spring equinox, those two witnesses are going to show up and start their 1260 day. And it, I want to say if I miss it, but I'm in that mode where it's like you're not going to miss this. So just pray for us. We're not trying to be sensational. We are really trying to tell you that this is fixing to come upon us, and we've got to be spiritually ready for this time it comes. Because I want to tell you something: we're not getting raptured out of here. We are not leaving, and we have done episodes on that. And you would have to defy Job's testimony. You would have to defy Hosea's testimony. You would have to defy Peter's testimony. You'd have to defy Paul's testimony, and even the Son of God himself, to say there's a pre or a mid tribulation rapture. And I know a lot of people get upset about that. But all I can do is say it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't happen, don't panic, because it wasn't going to happen anyway.
Right.
And make sure that you're prayed up and spiritually ready for this time that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that God has taken the sting of death away, that the Spirit will be poured out like an axe, but twice as much.
Axe on steroids.
And we do have to give our life, some of us will, that it'll be like Stephen.
Won't even feel the first stone.
First stone. So be prepared for what's coming. It's in this biblical cycle. Jesus died in AD 32. And then, according to Hosea, he's coming back in 2,000 years, which would be the biblical cycle of 2033, would be the end of that cycle. And you back up 7 years, you're at 2025 to 2026. And we also talked about last time how it makes the trumpets line up.
And Apophis. It makes Apophis line up, which the Lord told you Apophis was going to happen.
Yes.
In 2029.
Yes. It's going to happen. He told me it was going to happen. So, and then also Tom Horn said it was going to happen, but that's not why I'm saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it's going to happen because I got that revelation. This is going to happen. Right. Got that same word.
And
so
I was in dream in college about this natural disaster hitting, and I just believe that that's what it is. I believe that that's what lines up to be, what's going to happen around that time.
There's another gentleman that I met. He came in there, and I had a picture of Jesus, that Jim Caviezel picture of Jesus, up on the wall. And he's looked at me. He said, "You're a Christian?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You know why I'm in Tennessee?" And I said, "No." He said, 16 years ago, at that time, which has been a few more years since then, 16 years ago, the Lord told me to move to Tennessee because it was going to be a safe place. He said, there's going to be, debris and fireballs falling. He said, I seen it. And he said, the guy said to move to Tennessee, that it was going to be East Tennessee, that it was going to be a safe haven. And I was watching some guy's testimony the other day, and he said there's going to be 5 places that's going to be safe haven, and one of them was East Tennessee. Yes.
No, this.
Yeah, there's a guy out there that had a near-death experience, and it's what he was saying. And I said, well, that's what the guy told me in my office when he came in there, that the Lord said that East Tennessee would be a safe haven.
Oh my gosh, I wonder if that correlates with my dream. We were sitting in this church. A bunch of us were together in the church. I've said this on the podcast before. We were waiting for a natural disaster. We were looking up at this big A-frame, just waiting. But I wonder if we were all gathered in there because we knew that we were in a safe place and we were just all together.
It might be. Who knows? You didn't see the destruction.
No, so I didn't. No, I didn't. Before, I woke up before anything hit, but we were all gathered together watching out the window for something to happen. So
just keep praying, stay prayed up. Look for the 2 witnesses. They're going to show up.
How exciting is that going to be?
We know they're Elijah and Moses. We went over that 2 or 3 times. But they're going to show up. And when they do, that starts the first 1,260 days of the 70th week. Now, here's something else you got to understand. The tribulation period is not the first part of that week. It's the last half of that week. The tribulation period is not God's wrath only. The tribulation period, according to Revelation 12, is the wrath of the dragon, because he's coming into power, and it's his wrath upon this world because he's going to be destroyed. And that's why it says that the devil has come down to you having great wrath. And so a lot of people get the tribulation period mixed up with God's wrath. Now, it has God's bowls of judgment's wrath poured into it, but the thing about God's wrath is it's always eternal. It's not correction, it's eternal. So the wrath of God, the real wrath of God, is if you get separated from him forever.
It's not meant for us.
Yeah, if you're a born-again Christian, you will not suffer the wrath of God. So it's not going to happen to us. But the wrath of God is eternal. What happens on this planet is not eternal, because he's going to make a new heaven and a new earth. So some of the things in Revelation that we see are not the wrath of God.
Right.
Except the people that it falls on, if they die in that state and it becomes eternal, then it would be the wrath.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be eternal to be the wrath of God.
I feel like it's winding down, and I'm getting so excited because I used to be scared of the end times, but now I'm like so invested that every time me and my husband have a bad day, I'm like, we probably only have like 3.5 years left, like don't stress. We only have a little bit of this left, and then we get to go be with Jesus in bliss. And
actually, that's a good point. Jesus said for us to occupy till he comes. So we have to continue living, and we have to continue doing the things that we're supposed to do,
Mhm.
preaching the gospel, being a witness, feeding your family, doing your work until he comes,
Yeah.
right? Now, we're not saying we know the day and hour he's coming, because we have talked about this before. There really won't be a day and hour because the sun goes out.
Mhm.
But we are saying that this season is here, and that's what started this whole podcast, was the vision of Jesus in the TV
in 2023.
September of 2023.
Mm-hmm. You had like a 10-year warning.
Yes. So be ready, stay prayed up, and come Lord Jesus.
Yes, we are so excited and so ready. We want to see you in heaven.
Just confess your sins, make Jesus the Lord of your life, abide in him, and walk with him, and you will live with him forever.
If you are enjoying the content and would like to support our ministry, you can do so through Venmo or PayPal. Our handle is @CardingTruth, or use our QR code. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We hope that provided some clarity to that episode that we did. Please drop us a comment down below. Let us know any questions or anything that you want to add. We love to receive those. We read those and try to respond to those. And sometimes those end up making an episode, like the guy who commented a couple of times ago. Our whole episode was based off of something that he had said. So those are super powerful, and we love to hear from you. So please drop us a comment down below. We want to thank our subscribers. And if you've not subscribed, we would love if you would like, subscribe, and click the bell for more notifications. We have so many more episodes to come, and we cannot wait to join in with you again. From Carding Truth, we pray that you are blessed.